So I'm just going to show you some slides, give you a bit of an introduction to the course to start off with, and then I will open up for any questions that you have for me. So the first thing I should say is that this event will be recorded. It's actually being recorded now, but your cameras and microphones will remain switched off. So just now there'll be time for questions after this short presentation, and you can ask those questions using the Q&A function. If you're not familiar with Zoom, have a look and see where that is, and you type your questions in there. And if we don't get your question today, or you think of a question afterwards, you can follow up with that email address, which I think will be shown again at the end. So this is the agenda then, meeting the course team. That's me for today. The programme overview, the different study options on the course, looking at the course content and assessment, and then how to apply and some benefits of studying at Oxford. So we'll be covering a good range of the course, questions about the course, which you can then ask us about further at the end. The course team is Professor Tara Stubbs, who is going to be here today, but unfortunately she's been taken poorly. There's a lot of viruses going around in Oxford at the moment, I think, so she was voiceless, so was unable to join us, but she's the co-director of the Certificate of English Literature. The other director is actually Sandy Byrne, who's on research sabbatical this term, but will be coming back to the programme later in the year. And Tara is a professor of modern and contemporary literature at the department. And she works on modernist poetry and fiction, with particular interest in Irish and American literature, and is the author of those two books, the latest one being the Modern Irish Sonnet. And this is me, Dr. Benjamin Grant, or Ben Grant, and I'm a departmental lecturer in English literature. I got my BA from the Open University, so I'm well used to remote learning and part-time learning, and I have my MA and PhD in post-colonial studies from the University of Kent, where I taught English for a long time before coming to Oxford 7 years ago now. And I have varied research interests. Post-colonial world literature is where I started with my postgraduate work. In my first book, I've also looked at the theory and practice of the aphorism, different areas, travel literature, psychoanalysis, translation studies, and I've not included here, so it's not entirely up to date. I'm currently working on a British Jewish writer, Jenny Diski, D-I-S-K-I, if you want to look into her. So key facts about the programme then is a 2-year part-time course, which is the equivalent of the first year of an English literature Bachelor's in Arts, FHEQ level 4. So it's essentially half-time. It's taken over 2 years, which is the equivalent of 1 year, which is the first year of a degree programme. And we have 2 study options. One is online and the other is in person. So I'll say more about that as we go through. And the next intake is going to be in September 2026. So who's the course for then? Well, it's for anyone with a keen interest in literature and a motivation to study at degree levels. We're looking for people who really are genuinely interested in literature, read a lot of literature, and want to study, at that higher level. So having a more formal education in the subject. So we have students who come from a whole variety of backgrounds, with a whole variety of motivations for studying the course, maybe looking for new opportunities in education, publishing, or the cultural sector if they're looking for career development, or lifelong readers who want to engage more deeply with the texts they love. We've got a lot of people who would have loved to have studied literature earlier in life and ended up doing something maybe more vocational and developing their careers, and now have an opportunity to go back to their passion. Of aspiring academics or teachers who are looking for a strong foundation in critical literary engagement. So we get some people who are English teachers, for instance, who want to move up and teach at higher levels, or just want to brush up on the subject. You don't need any formal qualifications to apply, just curiosity, enthusiasm, and a good command of written English. As I said, then there's 2 options for the course. It's very important to be aware of this. 2 different pathways in which you can study it, although the course is just the same for whoever's studying. There's no difference in the structure of the course, but it's really in the mode of delivery and the ways in which you study. So the in-person option then involves weekly in-person seminars on Tuesday evenings from 7 to 9 p.m. during terms. So the terms are, well, there's 10 teaching weeks with a reading week in the middle. So yeah, so in addition to those weekly seminars, you also have a 30-minute individual tutorial for each assignment, or a 1-hour paired tutorial. So it's kind of half an hour each. It might be, you might be paired together to have a joint tutorial, or you might do an individual one. And that's to discuss your plans for the assignment. So it's an assignment that you're going to have, and you discuss your plans for it, your ideas, and get some feedback on that. We also have 3 day schools per year, 1 in each term. Usually, that's not always the case, but it is usually 1 per term. And these are either hybrid, which means that they're both online and in person. So you can turn up in person and, you know, in Really House where they're held, or you can attend online. Or other day schools are purely online. So it's a mixture of hybrid and online. You also have access to the English faculty lectures, which is a bonus of this course. You know, we don't follow exactly the English faculty undergraduate curriculum, but it's quite closely modelled on that. And the English faculty have kindly made their lectures available to students on the course. It's not essential that you attend those lectures, but they are available to you. So they're kind of for your own interest and development. And you can also make full use of the Bodleian Library's facilities, both physical facilities and online resources. Now, the option 2 is the online option, so it's more distance learning. So rather than having your weekly 2-hour seminars in Really House, you have online seminars on 4 Saturdays of each term from 1 to 4 p.m. UK time. It's important that these are all UK time. I'm sure that a lot of you are in different time zones, to be aware of what the time is in the UK. And these are via Microsoft Teams, which is a platform that we use for most of our online delivery. Not today, we're using Zoom, but we do usually use Teams for teaching purposes. You have access to a range of online resources, including recorded presentations. So each week you'll be given, you know, a worksheet to work on, some recorded presentations to view. So it's kind of like, you know, in those weekly seminars in person, the tutor might give you a presentation in the class. On the online, that's kind of moved online. So you're given the recorded presentation in advance to view. And then we're also giving you weekly group tutorials during the non-seminar weeks. So when you don't have the non-seminar is the online seminar on a Saturday. So when you don't have the live seminar on a Saturday, you have a group tutorial on a Thursday, typically between 7 and 8, but that can vary depending on the availability of the tutors. And additionally, you have, as with the in-person option, you have tutorials for each assignment, which are either half an hour individual or an hour paired, and 3 day schools per year. So yeah, for these it's the same, but the tutorials are online for the online students. And as with the in-person students, you have access to all the Oxford facilities, including the libraries and the English faculty lectures. So the English faculty lectures are usually recorded, they're not always recorded, and they're made available on a virtual learning environment. The English faculty only allows its lectures to be viewed for 2 weeks after they're recorded, so there's a time limit on when you can view them. In addition to all of those things, you also have a Shakespeare summer school, and everybody attends a Shakespeare summer school. This is in person in Oxford. You have to attend in person, so that be aware of that if you're particularly interested in the online option, that you do have to come to Oxford for a week to attend the Shakespeare summer school, which is held before the start of year 2. So it's held in September I suppose between the 2 years, so at the end of the first year. And that focuses usually on 2 comedies, 2 tragedies, and 2 history plays. You get a good variety of Shakespeare's work, and it combines post-textual analysis with an exploration of wider context of Shakespeare's work. And you could say that, you know, all of the work on the course that you're kind of looking at a mixture of close reading and thinking of wider contexts. And those are some of the texts that are likely to be on the course. So the course content, and this is the structure of the course. So we've got Michaelmas term, Hilary term, and Trinity term. And those of you who don't know about Oxford won't be familiar with these terms. These are the names of terms that I think are unique to Oxford and Cambridge. So Michaelmas term is the first term, that's in the autumn. Hilary term is the spring term, and Trinity term is the summer term, and then the long vacation. So the Michaelmas term, then you have approaches to literature 1 in the first year, and there we'll be looking at a mixture of different kinds of literature. So looking at poetry, drama, prose, and sort of close reading techniques, and how you might go about reading these different kinds of literature, different genres of literature. And we also look at some different critical approaches to literature. So we think, for instance, about the importance of the canon, and thinking about the role of the author, things like that. And in the second term of the first year, we look at Victorian literature. In the third term, we look at early modern poetry. Early modern is maybe a term you're not familiar with either. This is kind of the Renaissance, this period of Shakespeare. But we're not looking at Shakespeare in the terms, we look at him in the Shakespeare Summer School, which comes in the long vacation in September. And in the second year, in the first term, we do approaches to literature 2, which is in the first half of that term, we look at critical theory, and in the second term, we look at the history and varieties of the English language. And in Hilary term, we look at modernist writing, and in Trinity term, we come back to the early modern period to look at early modern drama. So that's the structure of the course there. So you get a good range of different periods and looking at different approaches to literature, and also think about history and varieties of the English language. And the course is assessed in the following way. So each term you have 2 pieces of coursework, so one after the first half of the term and then one at the end of the term, and these are of 2,000 words each. And there's one piece of coursework which is also 2,000 words following the Shakespeare Summer School. So in addition to those coursework essays, you also have, for the approaches 1 and approaches 2 in the first and second year respectively, you have a portfolio of work. So that's kind of like a takeaway exam, but you're given a long period of time to do it, a few months to do that. And that is also kind of in the form of kind of essay questions that you look at, but you don't see them before they're released. And then we also have 2 unseen exams in each year. So in the first year, you have Victorian literature and early modern poetry, and in the second year, modernist writing and early modern drama. And these are held online, so you don't have to come into Oxford for those. And these are the application deadlines then. As I said, the next course intake is in September of 2026, and we're already accepting applications for that. And the first deadline is the 12th of February 2026, and the second deadline is the 28th of May 2026. So after each of these deadlines, we will have a round of interviews for that. And as it says, the application is advised, as soon as you submit your application, the sooner your place will be considered. So yeah, I mean, so some of the benefits then that come with being a student of the University of Oxford, you're given a university card, and that gives you access to all the facilities in colleges. So some of the colleges you have to pay to get into if you're a member of the public. You can just go in if you have your university card. Some of the colleges you can't get into at all without the card. So you can go into all of those colleges, into all of the libraries, and we talk about the Bodleian libraries because there are very many of them. You might have seen the famous Radcliffe Camera, for instance. You can go and study in there. And the Taylorian Library, the Modern Languages Library is another very nice one. But there's a whole lot of libraries, including a continuing education library in Rewley House. So you can go to any libraries you like to study and to look at the books. And there's an award ceremony at the iconic Sheldonian Theatre. There's a picture of the Sheldonian Theatre there with people receiving their awards. That's a nice thing to finish once you finish the course, to come to the award ceremony in Oxford. Yeah, I should say about the libraries. I mean, the electronic resources of the Bodleian libraries are second to none. Whether you're in person or online, you'll benefit enormously from being able to access a large number of ebooks, journal articles, and other resources online. So yeah, so this is where you can find more information from our website. So as I said, if you have any questions afterwards or want to, have any questions, contact the undergraduate at conted.ox.ac.uk, and do have a look at our website for further details on the course. But yeah, now it's over to you for questions. I will stop sharing the screen, which will make it easier for me to look at the questions. Okay, great. So we've got some questions coming up here. I'm just going to read out the questions or maybe summarize them if they seem very long, and then we'll try to answer them. So I've got someone who's studying English literature at the Open University. Great to hear. How you'd compare that experience with the undergraduate certificate? Do you think the two could complement each other? Perhaps even something to pursue afterwards? Yeah, I mean, I think if you're already doing a course, I would suggest it's going to be difficult for you to do this one at the same time. And if anybody here is doing a full-time course or think of doing a full-time course, then you're not allowed to apply for this course. Well, you're allowed to apply for it. We won't be allowed to interview you or accept you onto the program. I don't know, the situation with part-time, but yeah, even if someone's studying part-time, it's quite difficult, I think, to be doing this course at the same time. So maybe it'd be something to pursue afterwards. In terms of how it compares, well, I think there's much more kind of live sessions here. As I say, we have a lot of live sessions, whether they're on Teams or in person. So there's more kind of interactivity than there would be with the Open University. You also have access to a lot more resources. I would say, the University of Oxford's, the Bodleian Library's resources are second to none. When I was studying with the Open University, I didn't have the benefit of all of those resources. I had to buy a lot of books myself, for instance, rather than having access to them in the library. I went to visit the British Library quite frequently while I was studying there. Yeah, it's also it's a fixed program, so everyone's studying the same thing. You're going through sequentially through the program, whereas the Open University is a more modular degree. So yeah, there's substantial differences between this program and the Open University. I found the certificate syllabus really interesting and broad. I wonder whether that additional exposure might be valuable. Yeah. So, as I say, if you're already doing the Open University, because I think it would say probably be difficult to do this one at the same time. But yeah, if you wanted to pursue it afterwards, that would certainly be an option, and you'd probably be looking at different things than you would be in the Open University. So, I think it's up to you in terms of that. But hopefully, that's given you an idea, though, of how it might be a different experience than studying with the Open University.
No.
Oh, sorry, I'm doing a. Sorry, I'm sharing an office, so we've just covered. So yeah, how are day schools different than the live online seminars? So yeah, day schools are more lectures for the day schools that we do at Victorian literature and modernist literature. So you have a number of different speakers on those. They're all, the Victorian and modernist ones are also open to the public, so there'll be a mixture of different people taking part in those. But we also have ones in academic writing, so I'll be telling you about academic writing. We have other ones on exam preparation days, and one on critical theory, which is also more kind of lecture style. So they're quite different. I mean, but yeah, they're more lecture based, I suppose. But or teaching you additional skills, academic writing or the exam preparation day skills. So will Shakespeare's poetry be featured? I don't teach on the Shakespeare summer school myself, but I think it is the plays that are being studied on that. Can the course be studied successfully whilst working full time? It's difficult to do it full time. We do have people who have done it full time, but I should emphasize that it requires at least 15 hours a week independent study time. So it is difficult to do, and you should think seriously about whether you do have the time to be able to do it. I think people generally need some flexibility in their work. But yeah, I mean, we have certainly had people who have done it full time, but it is certainly something. The first question that we ask in the interview is, you're required to put in this amount of independent study time. It's a demanding course. Have you considered that? If you do get interviewed, that's the first question we'll be asking you, and you should think about it before applying, I think. What are the progression options after finishing the course? So there's a lot of progression options. We don't, in the department, have anything beyond this course. So you can't apply within the department to go on to do the second year, for instance. So we just do what is the equivalent of the first year of a degree. But a lot of our students do go on to other universities. Some people apply for Oxford University, and you just apply for that in the same way as any other student. And we've had people interviewed, but generally every year we get one or two students perhaps who go into Oxford University into the first year or the second year, and it's up to you which to apply for. We also have a lot of students who go on to the second year of other universities, and very good universities, and we're very happy to help you in applying for that. As with Oxford, you apply through UCAS in the same way, but you can specify if you want to do second year entry there or first year entry. Some of our students go on to do the Masters in Literature and Arts, which is a course that we have in the department, which is an interdisciplinary master's program. The entry requirement for that is a bachelor's in a humanities-based subject. So, a lot of our students already have a bachelor's degree in a humanities subject. If you don't already have that, you'd be probably not meeting the entry requirements for it. It's a master's course. It's a big step up from this in terms of the level. And also people may go on and do maybe professional development opportunities that the course leads on to. It might be a career change or something like that, so further advancement within the career that they're doing. How many hours can I get a distinction a day during the 2 years? I don't think I understand that question. So maybe if you want to come back and clarify. For the application, what works would you suggest reading to present, or does it matter? Example, for the interview, would discussing Shakespeare be a better idea than, say, C.S. Lewis or J.K. Rowling? I think I would suggest that we're interested in what you've read in the classics as a rule. So probably not J.K. Rowling, but it should be what you're genuinely interested in. I would say that. I don't kind of think, oh, I really should discuss Shakespeare, so I'd better start reading some Shakespeare. I think we are genuinely interested in what you're interested in, and so that should be dictating what you talk about. I mean, I think it is good to be. You're asked to talk about your literary interests in the application, and I think it's good to be precise about what those literary interests are. Maybe choose, a couple of books that you'd be interested in talking about, saying more about. What are the success rates of applying to continue to undergraduate English literature degrees after this certificate in Oxford and others? So yeah, I suppose, as I say, probably we'd get like 1 or 2 a year on average. I'm not sure if the exact numbers, it varies from 1 year to the next of people who successfully apply to go to Oxford. I mean, you generally have to be doing well in this course. We usually would be thinking you're getting 65 or above. That's a high mark on this course. I know if you're an American university, it doesn't seem like a high mark, but it is a high mark in English institutions. And you just have to apply in the same way as everyone else. You have to provide a sample of writing, for instance. They did have exams for the entry. I don't think they have in the last couple of years, but they may reintroduce that. So there's an interview and then an interview as well for it. So assessors are applying for. I think for other English literature degrees would be higher success rates. Certainly, I think if you're doing well on the course, there's a very good chance that you would get into an undergraduate English literature degree in another university. It's by no means guaranteed. How many applications, how many places are available? So we capped it as, I think, 18 on each of the pathways. And the applications vary from year to year. But I mean, I would say, the interviews, it's not generally competitive. We're not getting like so many applications that we're sort of choosing between people. We're sort of thinking about, well, do you really think you would have a good chance of doing the course, doing well in it, justifying doing it, or making the most of it and it being a good thing for you to do. So we're really thinking about whether you're a suitable person for the course, whether you think you'd be able to do the course and do justice to the course, rather than it being, we've got so many applications that we're really only choosing a few of those. At the end of the 2 years, what are the opportunities for continue on towards BA? I mean, I think I've already answered that question. As I say, you'd have to apply somewhere else. We don't offer the rest of the BA here. So it's a question of going through the UCAS application process. Again, that's the same question. If we wanted to apply for a full undergraduate degree at Oxford and got accepted, would the certificate be recognised? So, I mean, I guess I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, but I think if you applied for second year entry, then it would be recognised that was equivalent to the first year, so you'd get your degree at the end of it. Now it's more difficult to get second year entry than it is first year entry, and we have a lot of different colleges in Oxford, and some of them are more willing to take people in that way than others. I mean, of course, you would still have your certificate. I mean, that would be recognised in and of itself, but yeah, I mean, if you applied successfully for second year entry, then it would be recognised as you'd achieved the requirements for the first year. The course doesn't start in October, it starts in September. Someone was asking when the course starts in October, does this include enrollment week? Our courses actually start in September. So yeah, it's late September, but the induction is is well in September. And then, so yeah, if you're away right through September, then you would miss the start of the course. What are the interviews like? How can we prepare for it? So the interview is we start off by talk a bit about the course and yourself. I mean, but then we have it's in two sections there. So the first section of the interview is on your literary interest in your applications. So that's when we'll be discussing with you. We usually ask you to talk about one particular text that you've read and indicated on your application form that you have an interest in. So it's good to be well prepared for that, and it's something you've read recently. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I want to talk about this," and it turns out they haven't read it for 20 years, and it's not a very good choice of text to talk about. So something you've read recently that's fresh in your mind that you can have a good conversation about. And then the second part is a close reading of a poem, and you won't have seen the poem in advance, so we'll give it to you to look at in the interview. So yeah, if you're not familiar with poetry, I guess you might want to read some poetry and start to think about that. So someone who has a background in data science and is taking online literature courses through the department and attended a summer school. So yeah, very good. Good preparation for the course. We have a lot of people who've done our short courses or summer schools who are interested in taking it further. Would completing the certificate make me eligible to apply for an MA in English Literature at Oxford? So yeah, I mean, or would a full undergraduate degree in English be required first? Probably, to be honest. I mean, I think if you've got a background in data science, and if you've only done this course, which is the equivalent of the first year, I think it's probable you'd need to do a full undergraduate degree, at least in a humanities subject, and preferably in English. No, the Shakespeare, you haven't attended the Shakespeare summer school on this course. It would be a different Shakespeare summer school. So yeah, if you did an USA course in Shakespeare, that's not the Shakespeare Summer School. The Shakespeare Summer School is purely for this course, so it doesn't count towards it. But yeah, it's not the same module; it's a different module. Are there any scholarships or funding opportunities available for this program? Yeah, I mean, we've got Claire answering some questions here. Maybe she can come in with that. There are. I mean, I think there's a bursary specifically for this course, I think, but yeah, maybe Claire can answer that better than I can.
Just to say that there are details on our website about possible sources of funding, including some bursaries. So do have a look there. There's more information. If you go to the bottom of the webpage on the certificate in English literature, you'll see a link to funding and it will give you the information there.
Great, thanks very much, Claire. Yeah, I can see Claire's busily answering a lot of the questions in the background there. So yeah, I'm just taking the things which Claire's not able to answer, but hopefully your 5-year answers in the chat. So in an application, how many books should we reference for discussion in a possible interview, and can they include contemporary literature? Yeah, I mean, as I say, if a small number, we don't want a huge, great, long list of things. I mean, I think there's things that, as I say, you've read recently, are fresh in your mind, things you're happy to discuss. And they can include contemporary literature, but as I say, beware of, it's kind of more sort of the literary fiction side of things rather than popular horror fiction or detective fiction. Nothing at all wrong with reading that kind of material. And we have occasionally had students who have very successfully talked about genre fiction, but it's kind of, the course is more, kind of classics and literary fiction. So I would suggest that. Pass mark for the course. So I mean, in the British system is different than other systems. We've probably got people from all kinds of educational, different countries' systems here. And the pass mark for the course is a 40. And we also have 2 other classifications, which are a merit, which is 60 to 69, or a distinction, which is 70 and above. But you pass the course with a 40. What kind of questions can we expect from the interview? Should we bring a portfolio of any support documents? So yeah, as I said, I've said about the structure of the interview, and we'd be asking you about your questions about the text that you want to talk about, and then asking you to engage with a poem. So you don't have to bring a portfolio with you. And what do you look for from mature applications? Do you consider applicants who have relevant experiences or previous uncompleted undergraduate English or creative writing courses? Yes, we certainly do. As I say, there's no formal entry requirements for the course, so we're really looking for any evidence that you've got, that you have a genuine passion for, interest in, and ability to read literature. So yeah, if you've started an undergraduate English or creative writing course, then yeah, that's absolutely be perfectly good thing to say on the application form. I mean, so could you talk more about the portfolio? What does that look like? A collection of all the essays. So it's, I mean, I suppose it looks like a bit like an exam. They're divided into 2 sections with a series of questions. The first year portfolio, I think, is 2 questions in the whole portfolio is no more than 3,000 words. The second year portfolio is 3 questions and no more than 5,000 words. So yeah, they are essay format. Can you go into further details about the Victorian and early modern modules, please? Well, there's probably more information on the website about the specific content, but so the Victorian literature, we look at a range of different kinds of writing, poetry and fiction, as well as we also look at slave narrative, Mary Prince, travel narrative, Mary Seacole, maybe some novels by Dickens, the Brontës and so on. I mean, it can vary depending on who's teaching it and from one year to the next. But yeah, certainly look at some of the big Victorian novels, some Victorian poetry, Browning's, Tennyson, Christina Rossetti, for example. So yeah, a mixture of different genres of writing and across the whole of the Victorian period. So we've got some fantasy eclat writing. The early modern modules I'm not so familiar with, to be honest. I don't teach on those, but so you have one in early modern poetry, which is looking at a number of early modern poets and different kinds of poetry from that period. And then the drama that doesn't include Shakespeare, so you need dramatists other than Shakespeare on that module. I think the specific contact number for fixing appointments, I don't know how to answer that. What is the balance between historical and modern literature? So that's a good question. So as I say, we look at the periods of literature. So the early modern period, which is going back to the sort of late 16th century, and then the Victorian period, and then the modernist, which kind of ends sort of around the Second World War. So we don't really look at stuff beyond that. So if you're particularly interested in contemporary literature, we're not covering that a great deal. There's opportunities to write about contemporary literature and the approaches to language and literature modules. Thinking about the different approaches to literature, you might want to look at some more contemporary literature in relation to that. But we don't currently go up to the contemporary period in those period modules. Well, I don't have any open questions remaining. So does anybody else have any questions? Do you offer interviews to a large portion of applications? Yeah, a fairly large proportion. I mean, not everybody, but yeah, I would say a pretty large proportion of the people who apply, we would give an interview to. Yeah, I mean, as I say, we're looking for evidence of an interest in literature. If you can demonstrate that in your application form, and also really high standard of written English, interest in English literature, and an interest in taking it on to formal study at degree level. I mean, those are the things that we're looking for in the interview, as in the application. But yeah, we interview most people who apply. Yeah, Shakespeare's mandatory. Everything on the course is mandatory. There's no choice. I mean, there's a lot of choice within the modules in terms of what you choose to write on. So everyone's path through the degree looks very different, but it's not a modular course. So it's like, everyone does a Shakespeare summer school, everybody does early modern poetry, Victorian, and so on and so forth. I mean, as I say, I don't want to sort of say who's good people to mention in terms of the application process, because we really do want to see what you're interested in. And if you're not interested in classic authors or reading that kind of literature, then you might question whether it's the right course for you, because we are looking for that established interest. Okay, so it looks like we've got through the questions. No, someone else has come up. Do previous academic outcomes and experiences significantly influence the application? Well, I mean, certainly, it's an advantage if you've got if academic achievements in a relevant area. You've shown that you've studied at degree level or whatever. Then it's obviously a factor that we take into account in the application. But I should stress that there are no formal entry requirements of that sort. What kind of poetry would you suggest specifically? I think again, talking about classic poetry, this canonical writers is good to look at. But yes, again, if you could demonstrate an interest in poetry, it's good. Is all the reading list available in digital form? No, the reading list is not available outside of the course. It will be available if you enroll on the course. We give you the reading list and so on, but the reading list can change from year to year. It's not something that we publish on the website. certain time periods we should look into for our applications. No, not really. I mean, we get people who are interested in lots of different periods. Again, it's what you're interested in. Yeah, you're very welcome to explore an interest in feminine classics, Bronte, Austen, Dickinson, or Woolf. You know, say if that's if that's where your interests lie, that's what we're interested in. I think that's probably picked up on a previous question. You are required to look into and discuss a text given to you in the interview. We will give you a short poem, which you won't have seen before, to read. We'll give you a little bit of time to read it, and then we'll discuss it with you. No, it's not. We prefer you talk about English literature. That's a good question. I know people read stuff in original language and other languages or in translation, but we're really, the course is English literature, and that's what we'd like to talk to you about in the interview. I'm disabled and need to be able to read all content on a laptop. Yeah, so it's a good point. So we do have a disability advisory service in the university. We also have a disability support officer in the department. And if you do have a disability, you're very strongly encouraged to declare it straight away, and then your needs will be assessed and any adjustments that we need to make for the teaching, so you can learn effectively the same as anyone else. There will be a support plan put in place for that. Yeah, you can explore texts such as Sir Gawain and the Green Knight or Beowulf, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't have to be within the period that is specifically studied on the course. Okay, great. Well, I think I've answered all your questions now. We're coming up to 2:45, so I think I will stop answering questions now, and let's see if I can reshare the screen. So yeah, just so I can bring up again at the end the website details and the contact details. So should you have any questions for us, things that we haven't answered or things that occur to you later, please do email the undergraduate office at contact.ox.ac.uk, and we'll be very happy to answer any questions. So yeah, let's leave it there then. Thank you very much indeed.